Hey folks, welcome back to another OWTV interview. My name is Apostle, and joining me today, we have one of the stars from our first interviews here on the channel joining us again. It's Rokit from Nightmare. Rokit, how are you doing today?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're super happy to have you back. Now, obviously, like I said, you have been here before. You're not a first timer, but just in case anyone missed the first interview, they don't recognize your name, could you just quickly introduce yourself? Tell us who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Rokit. I play Flex DPS on the NAOWCS team called Nightmare. We're currently in the fourth place position in the regular season, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. So real quick, let's start talking about, the most recent match you had, kind of solidifying that fourth place position. Um, you know, that match against Team Z felt like a pretty straightforward match. Was there anything that stood out to you particularly, either in their comps or by individual players that you were particularly impressed by from them, or?
No, I mean, I think that Team Z game we kind of just went in and we had such a hard schedule going into the first couple of weeks that we kind of knew that it'd be really hard at first, like the first couple of weeks. But as we came into the second half of the season, and we play Sakura or like Dilducks and then Geeka and then Sakura and then Team Z and then Extinction. Like I think we consider those teams to be lower caliber in comparison to what we've been prepping for. So we didn't really do too much because I mean obviously we're coming towards the end of the season. We had as much footage as we needed, and we kind of just played our own game and went in and took them out pretty easily.
Yeah. So you mentioned like your first games of the season, they were obviously like maybe your toughest ones yet, right? So are you guys kind of like taking this back half as a chance to like relax and focusing more on, the playoff spot that you guys have pretty much locked in at this point, or are you kind of still keeping pedal to the metal?
I think we're going hard, man. I think we were really only a team for like 2.5 weeks going into those first couple of matches, and we take those losses pretty hard, and we took them pretty seriously. All things considered, we did our best, but we're definitely not going to be slacking during the second half of the season because, in my opinion, every scrim counts, every day counts. We got to take everything as seriously as possible, and going into week 4, was it 1-3? We needed to make sure we didn't mess around because it's super important to us that we do secure a top 4 seed. And so even if we were to underestimate any single team that we play and potentially pay the price for it, it could completely ruin our playoff run. So yeah, I mean, we're going hard, man. We're scrimming a lot and we're grinding, just as we're treating every match as if it was, for a number 1 seed game. And I think it's going to pay off in the playoffs when we come into that top 4 bracket and really show it to whoever we play.
For sure. So now in the match against Team Z specifically, do you think that you guys did kind of like, play at 100%? Because we've seen some of the top teams say when they face against like lower half teams that, the match was even closer than it should have been. But are you happy with how you guys performed there in that match?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. I mean, even compared to when we played a team like Dilducks, I think everyone was kind of still like on edge. And I think something that our team is focusing on with these matches in particular is that we want to make sure like we get our match day vibe down, and making sure we show up to like any official regardless of who we play, and we really focus on what we want our match day like vibe to be, what we want our comm structure to be, because when in any new team, some people might come to a match day and talk more, talk less. So we're treating these matches really important because even though we consider the teams we're playing not to be like the caliber of like a top team, it's still important that we get like that we perform in a situation where there's a lot more stress. So I think everyone was really pleased with how we played, especially in comparison to how we played versus the first couple of teams we played. Yeah, man, I think everyone's pretty pleased with our performance.
Awesome. Now, talking a little bit about things maybe from the perspective of your opponents, well, we saw Team Z try some pretty experimental stuff. Like even on the first map, they opened things up on the second point with like a Reinhardt comp. Is that something that you guys were kind of expecting to come out of them, or?
No, man, we had no idea they were going to be playing Ryan. In terms of scouting, like we saw their previous match and I think we might have scrummed them at some point, but we knew they were just going to probably be playing a lot of Zarya. But we also knew that they weren't looking too good, especially I think the day before they had to play Sakura and they struggled really bad versus Sakura. So we knew they were probably not going to switch too much up. because they have a doubleheader, and I think it probably look worse changing too much going into your second match of a doubleheader. We did not expect the Ryan, but it only made an appearance for one round of Koth, and I think if anything, we just expected Zara. We didn't really expect them to play a lot of Winston, but I think we're a pretty adaptable team, so it really didn't take more than a couple of seconds to realize what we needed to change and how to approach it.
Yeah, so can you maybe dive into that a little more? Like when you see these kinds of things that you guys haven't prepared for, and especially comps that are probably, I'm assuming you haven't scrimmed against either, right?
Yeah.
What kind of stuff kind of goes into adapting on the fly? Is it just like kind of reworking strategies you already have, or is it improvisation based when you're actually just taking these fights?
I think everyone on our team is experienced enough to know the micro adjustments they have to make for individual wise. Like for me, for example, I know the difference in play style I have to take when I'm playing versus Zarya versus when I'm playing versus Reinhardt. And I think everyone understands that for themselves. What's important for us is that we understand what does this mean for us as a team? Like how do we change, how we approach a neutral fight when they're on something like Reinhardt. And we practice a lot because, funnily enough, I in my opinion, and just based on my scrim experience, a lot of the top teams play very different types of Overwatch. In the literal sense that they play varying different comps. Like DK likes to play Ball, Wu Yang, Lucio. No one else, like really in the world, likes to play that. Liquid likes to play, a bunch of counter swap tank type stuff and a lot of ground tanks, and SSG likes to just play Zarya and like Reaper. So scrimming these top teams, if we have a block where it's like, okay, we have to play SSG, and then like 2 hours later we have to play Liquid, we're really used to changing how we have to approach any slight difference in the matchup just based on how much of a variety there is in the top teams right now. And so it's something that I think we're really, really good at, is just adjusting quickly, just based on, the variety of the top teams. And so when a team like Team Z just, busts out Reinhardt, it really isn't any problem for us because we're so used to having to change based on, scrims.
Right. Now, talking more about kind of Nightmare specifically and how you guys function as a team. More recently, we've been seeing a lot of Painkiller and Nenwhy there in the starting lineups. Can you tell us a bit about what they add to the team when they're in the lineup?
Yeah, for sure. I think Rhino didn't play a lot, last stage. We wanted to put him in early this stage because he was, obviously very, very good at Ball and Winston. But I think Painkiller adds a bit more structure and consistency just because we've played with him for a lot longer. On top of that, I think he can play like a lot of tanks. Like he can even flex onto Winston if he needs to. But I mean, other than those two heroes, he can play every single ground tank, like and D.Va. So I think he just adds like a layer of consistency that helps our team a lot, especially in high pressure situations. As for Nenwhy, I think he's just, a really, really solid Lucio, and he's incredibly hungry to learn. I think everyone kind of had doubts in the back of their mind based on, he didn't really have a lot of experience, but he's been a very, very pleasant surprise in terms of just, how well he's playing and how well he's approaching practice. And I think, Squid still has his place on the team. He came in on Gibraltar versus Team Z, but we kind of want to save him for more double flex support looks and kind of just play more Lucio.
Right. When you have Painkiller and NYN, do they kind of change the comm structure significantly, or is it kind of set up in a way so that you can make those swaps as needed?
I wouldn't say they changed it too much. I mean, Nenwhy definitely is a more consistent ult tracker than Squid because of his experience on the main support role. But it really is no problem because even when Nenwhy is in, we kind of help him out with ult tracks. Everyone kind of tracks their counterpart, and we make fight planning very simple. And as for Painkiller, like I said, he adds a layer of consistency to the comms. But also, it's like fight plans aren't just, a main tank job anymore. I think the game has evolved to where everyone's kind of making plans depending on what they want to do in a fight, whether it be how I want to use my ult this fight or how I want to position to get kills this fight. That's kind of just dependent on, the player who wants to do it in that particular instance.
Okay. All right. So my next question is, I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of how the meta has developed, because in our first interview, we were just coming into the stage and, it was looking like we were going to be seeing a lot of the double flex, right? And I remember talking to you in particular, you mentioned that you were excited to like show off your Genji, your Venture, and, maybe put Seeker on the Tracer. And then now post midseason patch, things have kind of gotten shaken up from what we were expecting, and you're back playing a lot of Tracer. So how do you kind of feel about how the midseason patch changed things for you guys?
I think it's definitely it benefited us a lot. I think Seeker's just so solid at hit scan. We had a pretty strong double flex comp, but I think that comp might have just had too many moving parts for a new team like us to really excel at. I think if the meta were to shift back to that, like randomly now, we'd still be, less favorable because I think Seeker's a hard hit scan player, but we'd look a lot better now just because we've had more time to gel. I think that comp was one of the most like team-based comps we've seen in a long time, and for a team like us who kind of just came together recently, and we were playing a lot of Rhino and a lot of Squid. So I mean, there was a point in time where it was kind of just like I was the only consistent player from the previous stage who was playing in the scrims and the matches, right? So it was basically 4 new players on Nightmare, in a sense. But now that it's back to solid hit scan and a lot more Lucio and a lot more Tracer, I think everyone's just more comfortable. And that comfortability gives us a lot more room to focus less on ourselves, but more on how we can help each other and develop as a team first before we start excelling at the individual stuff.
Okay, yeah. So, given the current state of the meta, is this kind of something that you guys would like, talking from about even personal preference? Do you kind of like what it's kind of settled on? Like, if this ends up extending into playoffs, are you guys happy with that, or are you kind of hoping for the classic playoffs patch that we've seen happen so many times before?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be that patch. To be honest, I hope they don't change too much. I think there's some
like the
heroes.
State of things now?
Yeah, I like the state of things. There's some things that I wish could change in our favor, but there's also some things that I'm really happy with right now. Like Seeker being able to play a lot of hit scan, I love. Me being able to play a lot of Tracer, I love. And then Nenwhy with Lucio, but like if they were to potentially nerf like Wu Yang, I think that put us in a better spot because we don't play a lot of Wu Yang, and it would potentially hurt a team like Geeke. So there's some things like for us as a team, I'm very happy and pleased with the current meta, but I wouldn't be opposed to changes, whether it's in our favor or not in the favor of other teams, right?
Right. So, yeah, I'm assuming that means you're pretty confident in your ability. Should we get that playoffs patch?
Definitely.
Right. All right. Now, talking about the more immediate future, before we get to playoffs, you guys have one final opponent in Extinction, of course. And, I think, a week ago, this would have been a pretty open shut case for Nightmare. But with their recently really close match against SSG, it's, kind of got people asking a lot of questions. So if you got the chance to watch it, do you have any thoughts of it? Like, was Nightmare kind of watching that and being like, oh, we didn't expect to see this level out of these guys? What was kind of the thoughts going on there?
Yeah, everyone was surprised. I don't think anyone wasn't. We were watching that match in our team chat, and we were kind of expecting SSG to close it out pretty easily, but we quickly came to find out that Extinction looked really good. They looked very, very good, especially like if I were to give props to anybody, it'd be King and Vision. I think they had such an insane performance, like that something that I would expect of them. Those guys were both my former teammates. I played in a trio with them, DPS rotation before, and I rate them both very highly. I think it shouldn't be a problem for us though. SSG looked like they were kind of playing off. If I were to be honest, they didn't look like the SSG that I came to expect. But I mean, it's exciting. These past 3 weeks, playing Sakura and playing Team Z, it's like we don't underestimate them at all. And to be honest, the more we can, the more better a team looks, the more fun it's going to be, in my opinion. Like I'm really excited to play Extinction and see if they can live up to the expectations that I have for them now. And if they don't, it's whatever. We'll just look towards playoffs, but we're gonna put in a lot of prep for them because they're giving us a reason to, pretty much.
Yeah. Are you going to be like kind of putting in more prep than you would have otherwise, or is it because you did mention that you're kind of taking things seriously no matter what? But has this kind of changed your prep at all, or?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I think everyone does prep for even for the Ducks, man. We were putting in work. You don't want to be a team to lose maps to the Ducks, even though they're a top team. I think we're gonna put in we're gonna respect them just as much as we would a team like Liquid or EK. I think that's an important thing for a team's culture. It's an important thing for a team to stay consistent. And if the more 3-0s we can build up right now, the better we're gonna we're going to look in playoffs, the more confidence we're going to have in each other. And it's really important to me, particularly that we get this 3-0.
All right. Now, you still kind of talking about what we might see from Extinction. In that match against SSG, it seemed like it had a pretty good idea of how to counter the Zarya comps with these like Ram and Winston comps they were running. And obviously, Nightmare with Painkiller, and you guys have been running a lot of Zarya yourselves. So do you guys kind of planning for their counters in particular, or is that something you're particularly looking at from them?
I think they look very good versus Zarya comps. And I think even if you look into Korea right now, Zarya is phasing out a little bit. I think people are finding that Ramantra has a decent matchup and isn't as bad as people initially thought. I think they look great into the Zarya comp. As for like how that changes things for us, PK can play all the ground tanks. So if they were to roll out on something that was uncomfortable for him, it's just one swap away. I mean, if anything, I think the thing that we're most concerned about is vision on Hanzo, because I swear that guy was just winning fights with them back and forth. But I mean, yeah, Hattori has a lot of good looks on the Winston and the Ramantra, but I mean, with how the game is developed right now, it just seems like all you really have to do if you're struggling is just swap one or two heroes, and then suddenly it feels way more comfortable. But yeah, we shouldn't have to change much. I mean, they look good into the Zarya, but we're not a Zarya one-trick team by any means.
Okay. Now, I do have a question because you brought up vision on the Hanzo. We've seen Seeker pull out a couple experiments on the Hanzo on broadcast. Is that something that you guys might try to mirror, or have you kind of settled into keeping Seeker on his more iconic heroes, we'll say?
I think Seeker's a sick Hanzo. But if Vision shows up like that, man, I don't even think he's going to want to mirror. Vision had a life game, man. He looked great. But also, like, you know, with bans in the game, we kind of just ban it on a strong Hanzo point and force them to protect it if we can't get the ban off. I think we'll probably keep Seeker on what he's been playing most right now. But, I mean, Seeker's Hanzo is great, and I know he'll show up on match day when it matters. We'll make sure that Vision can do as little as possible as a team, so it's not just relying on him to win the duel or something.
Okay. So with all that being said, now I gotta ask, do you have any messages you want to give Extinction? Anything you want to say about them in particular?
I mean, honestly, nothing really. I hope they show up as well as they did versus SSG. I think it'd be way more exciting if they did, and if they don't, it's unfortunate. But you know, I love King and Vision; those are my guys. I expect a good match, and hopefully we can get the 3-0.
All right. So let's kind of move past that now and look at what comes after. Because obviously, if you win the remaining game, you're set to go into playoffs in the 4th spot. So Team Liquid are expected to finish top, and that means they'll get to pick their opponent, of course. Do you think they're going to pick you guys as that 4th place seed?
Yeah, I think we will. I mean, it just makes the most sense, right? Considering they just went to a map 5 with Geeke, and Geeke looked very, very good in the first half of that set. I think if Geeke played slightly better, they'd probably take that. Honestly, maybe even at 3-1. Like if you look back at that set, they really should have won Hollywood, and they kind of choked a little bit. But I mean, I don't think they have any reason to pick Geeke because I think everyone knows Geeke is an insane match day team. You don't really want to play with fire. And then they also went to map 5 versus SSG, and while they might feel like slightly more confident versus SSG, just because I think Hawk likes to just basically only play like less tanks than PK, and they don't have a main tank player to potentially sub in like we do. I mean, just on paper, statistically we had the weakest showing versus them, even though at the time if we were to play them in bracket, it would be 8 weeks, you know, since we played them in an official. So. I think they will, and I honestly I think everyone kind of welcomes that decision from them. Nightmare played Liquid in round 1 of playoffs bracket last stage, and it didn't go our way. So I think everyone, you know, really, really wants to. If Liquid were to pick us, I think everyone would really, really want to get that win that time. And you know, at the end of the day, you have to beat more teams than you lose to in playoffs. So it doesn't really matter who we play. You know, we're gonna do our best, and say we lose, we'll play the weaker team in the bracket and the lower bracket, right? So, it's if they pick us, great.
So, kind of working off the assumption that they would pick you guys, does that make it easier for you guys to prepare, kind of knowing that you have such a tough opponent? You have the opportunity to kind of get rid of right off the bat.
Yeah, man. It'd be so nice to play Liquid or SSG or GK and not have to worry about playing another one directly the next day after, man. I cannot get over our week 1 schedule. That was ridiculous. Like, we're a new team and we have to play Liquid and then the next day play SSG. There's not a soul. They play so different. Like, their comps are different. The style's different. It's like, we felt like we just got dealt the worst hand of all time. And because of that, like, we're still confident versus both teams. If we have like a full like training camp for both teams and we get to practice versus both teams, like, or versus one team at a time, sorry, not both, then it shouldn't be like, we'll have a really, really good showing. And I think it'd be so much easier and so much less stressful, if they pick us at the end of next weekend and we have a week to prepare for just that team. We'd be so pleased. We'd be very, very confident when the time came to actually play them.
Right. And so, kind of going off what you said about how that opening schedule was just so rough for you guys and it was kind of unlucky. Maybe it made you guys look like a little worse than it should have, right? So is there kind of a sense of proving yourself that comes here as you go back into playoffs and get these rematch opportunities?
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm so dead set on getting these 3-0s, like versus Ducks, versus Team Z, versus Extinction, versus Sakura. Like, I want everyone to not forget that we're still a threat, right? And I know the top teams, I know they still respect us because we trade out with them in scrims, and that wasn't our best look in week 1. It just wasn't. Like, there's no way it could be. It's gonna be 8 weeks later, a whole almost 2 months of training, and we're gonna look so much better. And we really want to prove it to everybody that Nightmare as an organization is a team that can always upset a partner team, right?
Yeah. So as you get into playoffs here, you've mentioned that, like, you guys haven't been letting up when it comes to prep, even for like some of these arguably weaker teams. But when you get to playoffs, does anything change at that point? Is there anything that kind of, is there like another gear that you can shift into when you get to this point?
For sure. I think we're going to do another playoff boot camp like we did last stage. We're going to have all the boys in Miami. It's going to be awesome. That'll be, the week leading into our first playoff match. So once we're all together in person, the energy just shifts, man. It's the practice is dialed. You look to your left and you can, talk stuff out. We'll actually have an even playing field for teams like Liquid and partially GK, who are, near each other in real life. And it's the improvement is a lot more efficient that way. So we'll have, a week and a half in Miami, bless Flack and the Nightmare guys for making it happen. We're not going to, make that opportunity go to waste. We're going to go to Miami. We're going to work even harder, and, we're just going to gel. We're going to enter, that final gear just because, we're not in our bedrooms anymore. We can hash stuff out, and, we'll all be on like more decent ping. Like, for me, my ping will be cut in half. So I'm super excited for it. But yeah,
picking up the training weights.
Yeah, like that'll be like the true best form of us for this stage for sure.
Okay. So if you do well in playoffs, that means you make world finals. You need to get top 3. And obviously that means beating one of Team Liquid, SSG, or GK. Out of those 3, is there a particular team that you think is most vulnerable, or one that you guys would match up particularly well into?
It's hard to say, because honestly, I think of the top 4, it's weird, because I think one team could beat another team and then that team could lose to another team, right? I think it's kind of like a big circle of how the matchups work. I think.
So you think it's actually a pretty volatile top 4?
Yeah, I mean, not to say that I don't think we'd roll all three teams, but I'm just saying, like, the matchup would be different, team dependent. Like, I think Liquid could, struggle into GK but do very well in the SSG, but SSG could potentially beat GK, is basically what I'm saying. For us, like, if we were to think one team is, the best fit for us, it'd probably be SSG, just because I think, we kind of have that, like, that confidence versus our old teammates, Chronic and Lep and stuff, and my old teammate CJ. And I think, it's the most simplified matchup. If it were to happen, it would probably be like a ground tank mirror, which is very, very simple Overwatch in comparison to, Geeky playing ball wing, Lucio running around the map, Ultraviolet doing crazy things. So for us, I think it'd be a lot simpler to play SSG, and I think we'd probably have the best chance of beating them right now if we were to play like tomorrow.
So kind of building off that, is there any like kind of specific sense of like maybe targeting them as your opportunity to clinch top 3?
Well, I think based on our normal season record, we're probably going to get fourth, so we won't get our pick. You know, we're kind of up to the fate of Liquid. If they want to pick us, cool. If we lose, we'll play whoever's in the lower bracket. There's no really way for us to target them, but I mean, if we were to play SSG in round one, that'd be awesome.
I guess I
I'd
should
be down for
clarify. I mean, target in terms of like kind of prep and just like the way you look at the teams in the playoff bracket.
that. No, I think, like I said, it's
You're still preparing for them all evenly, kind
yeah,
of.
you kind of have to, right? Because you can't just put all your eggs into one basket.
Right.
I mean, luckily there is like a week break in between round one upper bracket and that losers finals, which would be like the third place deciding match. So if you were to lose your first game, you still get another week of prep, which is fine. But I mean, you have to be capable of beating any team. You have like this is what it means to be, a team that's the caliber, the team that deserves to be at the World Finals. You don't get a lucky bracket, right? Like that's not how this works. You have to be capable of beating anybody on any given day, and it's gonna be, we're gonna do our prep for the teams we play. But if our fundamentals and our will to win is strong enough, we'll have to beat anybody, and I think we can.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting because like I know a lot of teams they might fall into that trap of like we just need third is good enough, but it sounds like you guys are avoiding that.
Yeah, it's I think it's a trapped mindset too, because you're setting yourself up for a third place. Like, okay, well, what if you do get third? Okay, well then, you got what you wanted, so you're gonna show up to that losers finals game, for potentially higher seeding at Sweden, and it's gonna be, you're gonna look bad. That's kind of what happened to us last stage, right? We put so much into clinching that tournament berth in Saudi, and we ended up getting 3-0'd by Geeke the next day after 3-0ing SSG. So we really want to make a deep run this time. None of us have ever won an OWCS, so we want to do that while we still can, and we're going to show up with the confidence that we can be anybody in NA.
Right. So, kind of going off that, you mentioned that like a lot of you guys are very hungry for this win, right? So what would it mean to you guys and, even like just you personally to be able to make it to the World Finals?
Oh, it means so much, man. For me personally, making one LAN is, people can kind of count it out as a fluke. And if with our struggle in the beginning of this stage, people might already be saying like, oh well, they kind of just got lucky. SSG just didn't look good. But I mean, if you make 2 LANs in a row, that's just, especially as an unpartnered team, like that's just such an achievement. And I think going into next year, it's so important to have your last performance be on the world stage and not domestically in the US. For us as a team, like Nenwhy's never made a LAN, Squid's never made a LAN. Seeker wants to get redemption for missing out on last stages, so everyone really wants it so bad, and it's so important to us that we can at least show up. And with how much fun I had in the Esports World Cup, like I loved it, and I would love to go back and do better on the international stage and set myself up to be in a strong position going into next year.
Awesome. Well, Rokit, that pretty much wraps up all the questions I have for you here today. But before I let you go, do you have any messages you want to put out there or anything you want to shout out?
Shout out to the boys. Shout out to the boys at Nightmare, the players, the staff. Everyone's a god. We're gonna show up to playoffs and we're gonna shock everybody again, man. I'm telling you right now.
All right, shock the world, but with a different org.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, Rokit, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been a pleasure to have you on as always.
Thank you so much, man.
All right. And with that, we come to the end of this episode. Make sure you go check out Rokit and the team Nightmare on their socials. Links will be down below. Make sure you follow them so you can keep an eye on their matches and what will likely be a legendary playoff run if Rokit ends up being right here. And of course, make sure you follow OWTV on all our social pages as well so you can keep an eye out for more interviews just like this and find out what's going on behind the scenes with your favorite teams and your favorite players. But again, that is a wrap for today. I've been Apostle, and this has been Rokit joining me. Thank you all so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed, and take care.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Take it easy. Have a good night.